Hey guys, I'm going to share two games with you now because I've been looking around quite a lot and trying out a lot of different approaches to counter the Sicilian, and I was just inspired this week to go back to kind of rekindle an old relationship with the Grand Prix attack, and it's not too common, but I think I got some good results with it in the past, and I've had a couple of blitz games with it today that I thought would be very interesting. So let me take you through those and see if I can inspire you to have a go at the Grand Prix. I mean, what triggered it was I got an email through from Simon Williams, who's got a chessable course on the British Grand Prix attack, okay, which is a variation on this, but that's not what I'm playing here. So here's how it goes. So it comes from the Sicilian. So you're white, you play e4, your opponent plays c5, and then you play knight to c3. And this looks like the closed Sicilian, right? And it has a less exciting reputation than the open Sicilian, which would be bringing out the king's knight to f3, okay? Now your opponent will either develop their knight here or probably play d6. And so knight comes out here, and now f4. All right, and this is really the signature move. Okay, so if you play the fantasy variation with a Caro-Kann, you might find some kind of similarities with this. So now d6 comes, so those two moves can really be played in any order. And now we develop the knight. And what's interesting here is that you've already pushed Freddie up to there, and now you're developing the knight to f3 behind the advanced pawn. Okay, so what you want to do is you're going to want to move this bishop, get your king castled, and then usually get your queen to e1 and often to h4 to join in a kingside attack. Okay, with the help of this advanced pawn, with a rook behind it, etc., etc. Okay, so it all kind of makes sense. So here my opponent, so this guy's rated 1250 odd from Israel, comes out, develops his knight. I push d3, just building up my pawn structure, okay? So nice little central control here. Whereas my opponent has a kind of a more cautious, kind of less direct approach. Now he decides to pin my knight. I just push bishop to e2, which is the only square it's going to go to anyway. And h6 is played and castles, okay? So I'm getting nice kind of smooth development here. My opponent now pushes his queen to d7, so I'm thinking, is he got ideas of castling long? So I throw out a4, almost just to say, you know, don't think about it, mate. Okay, so now we have e5, and I push f5 in order to block off all of this, okay? So we have quite a close center now. So my pieces are looking more at this direction. So what's my opponent going to do? Well, he trades off the knight, and here I have a choice. Okay, I'm not going to take the pawn, but I've got bishop or rook. Okay, and in this instance, I decide to take with the bishop. If I took with the rook, that bishop would be very, very stuck there. But at least here I've got options of coming round. Okay, so he now comes after my bishop, and I'm thinking that would do me a huge favour, because look at me, I've got this giant light squared pawn chain. This bishop is going to have heaps of trouble trying to get into the game. If I come here, pushes, I don't know, take, that might be possible. So I attack the knight. Now he pushes the g-pawn, and we trade off. Okay. Now I spy a little hole. So I throw my knight in there, saying, hey, do you want to trade off knights? He says, yes, I do. So I get double d-pawns. But this pawn is currently defended, and I've opened up the f-file, okay? And now he castles. Now, puzzle time, right? White to play and win material, okay? Pause the video if you need to, and we're talking serious material, okay? See if you can spot it. But there's two moves that you have to play, and they have to be in the right order, okay? Okay, so here's what I spy with my little eye. Queen and king all together on a light squared diagonal. Do I have a light squared bishop? Yeah, huh? Okay, so what I want to do is play my bishop to here, where it's defended by my queen, and win his queen, because it's pinned to the king, can't legally move. The only problem is, my opponent has knight here, well, I'll take it with a pawn, but he also has knight here, which kind of buggers up my plans. So, bishop takes d4, and now he can't recapture. Okay, now this guy's used less than a minute of his allocated 5 minutes on his clock, and he thinks that will do me, I will have a bishop, thank you very much, and I go, thank you very much. Okay, and there we go. The queen is pinned and there's nothing that can block. Okay, so he moves his king out the way. I take the queen, he takes back. Okay, so I'm +6 here, and from this point it's a relatively straightforward finish. I think I do actually blunder a rook though. So I drop my rook back, he comes in, I hit the bishop, he comes in with check. Okay, so I trade off the rook for a bishop because I'm basically consolidating my advantage here. And we fanny about for a bit, and finally it's all going to end in tears if you've got the black pieces. So I come another check, just squeezing my pawns up now on the queen side. And here, this is interesting. So he takes my pawn, right? Now, if I recapture the pawn, bam, bam, bad news, because rook takes, and I'm in check, okay? So queen h3. Now what he can do is take, I recapture the queen, he recaptures with a rook, king takes. So he gives up both rooks for a queen, okay? Generally, not the best idea, particularly when it leaves your opponent with the only rook on the board. So he comes in here, which I don't really get. So I just move my king out the way, and now he comes in and grabs the pawn. So we trade off. And now it's all, you know, dead simple really. I'm just sweeping up pawns, and he actually gets a queen here as well, right? So I check him, I come down here, I move my king attacking the queen, and I think he's out of checks here. Yeah, so he goes there. I push my pawn forward because that gives me a couple of options to check with my queen. Okay, and he pushes a pawn, I come here, comes in here, and now I grab, and then this forces an exchange of queens, and this is now very straightforward. Okay, as long as I don't lose my rook. Okay, so important end game here. King and rook against a king, and obviously, and I'm down to 20 seconds on time as well. So I end up kind of retreating my rook. I get opposition. Now he retreats. Now I should probably, I think, have put my king here, actually, with opposition, which prevents his king from advancing. But I didn't do that, I put my rook there. Okay, but I'm playing very quick. Okay, now I put my king here. Now I have opposition, okay? So he can only go sideways, he can't come up the board. So he goes sideways, I move my rook out the way, rook to here. And now he can't stay on this row, and he can't advance either, so he has to retreat. I get the pawn, and now you see he moves into opposition. Now I move my rook onto the same line as his king, and now he can't advance and he can't stay there, he has to go onto the back rank. And now it's a simple question of, okay, this is important. So if I'd have moved my king here, he could just move back, right? I move my king here, he moves back, okay? So what I do is I put in an in-between move and just move my rook, okay? So now he can't come back here because that's checkmate, right? So he goes there, 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 and checkmate with 3.8 seconds left on the clock, okay? But nice fun opening, I hope you will agree. Let's look at the next one. This is the last game that I played. E4, C5, okay? Knight to C3. Oh, boring old close Sicilian, not so fast. Now he plays D6, okay? I play F4, and now A6. Okay, fair enough. So bishop comes out to E2 again. Knight comes out, right? So it's very, very predictable kind of move orders here. Knight F3, we've seen it before. Bishop comes out. hitting the knight, I castle. Almost the exact same position as we had previously. Okay, knight comes out, hitting the pawn. Okay, it's almost identical. Now I hit his bishop, and he trades off. And this time I recapture with the rook. Okay, because we haven't got this solid kind of light squared pawn structure. And I'm thinking, I'd like to move my rook over here. Okay, so he comes in, attacks my rook. That's fine. I was going to play rook g3 anyway, so I ain't even bothered. So he takes my bishop. I ain't even bothered again. Right, and now, right, there's no light squared bishop, so I'm going to want to push these pawns up and then give this guy the freedom of the sitting. Okay, so e6, d3. Pushes now. Okay, so he's got ideas of defending himself over here, like King's Indian style. I develop my bishop now, getting ready maybe to bring my other rook into the game. He fianchettos the bishop, he castles. Okay, straight into the line of a rook, and another rook, and a queen. Okay, so what I love about this opening is it really just does help you to, gives you a way to throw all of your stuff at your opponent's kingside. This is really cool. Okay, and if I've got other older videos on the Grand Prix as well, if you want to look them up. So now off goes Harry. Harry's going to target this hook pawn here, which has been advanced and is just begging to be removed from the proceedings. Okay, so my opponent now plays h5, which again gives a target, because should this bishop ever move, this pawn here will be pinned and is no longer defending that pawn. Got to remember that. Okay, so f5. I'm pressing forwards. Now if this pawn moves forwards, it gets snatched off. Right? Is he going to take and take? Yes. Okay. Now I'm still attacking Gary. Okay. So the knight now comes in. Now I had several points in this game I thought about sacking the exchange to get the knight and the pawn in order for an attack. But it's not the time for that. I see this move here, advancing my bishop, attacking his queen. Queen moves out here, now looking at the b2 pawn, which is undefended. Okay, do we worry about this? Okay, so I had to think, and I press forward. Freddie goes there, and now this bishop can't come to here because it just gets, well, it could do. Okay, but instead he pushes c4 with a discovered check. I go, I ain't bothered, king h1, step out the way. Now the bishop retreats. Okay, and now my knight comes in, so I've got ideas here, right? So I'm hitting the queen, I'm kind of almost prompting the queen to capture on b2, right? But I've also got ideas of this, a check here, and the king can't go there, the king would have to move here. And then what do we do? It's not all that clear, okay? But my opponent puts his knight, his rook to there, and then I'm thinking, well, you know, I might have had ideas also about coming around here, maybe take out the pawn, not sure. But this makes up my mind. So rook e7 with check, block the attack on the queen, and the king is now getting squished. I love this, like that last game in the video of 4 that I posted earlier, really managed to squish my opponent like a bug, and it's damn enjoyable. Okay, so king comes here, and now I have the option of like a check here, but knight takes. Okay, so what do we do? Just quietly slide the queen across to d2. And now, because that's almost checkmate, right? The king only has 2 squares he can move to. That one's covered by the knight. All I need to do is take out this one, give check, and he's done. He takes a pawn. Again, my opponent, it's a blitz game, right? 2 minutes on the clock, didn't use any of that 2 minutes, used 6 seconds and blundered. Check. There's only one legal move, knight. Oh no, there's 2. Forgive me. So, okay, if knight takes, queen takes, bishop blocks, queen takes, protected by Freddie, and it's all over. But here is even quicker, game over. Lovely checkmate, right? So that, I would say, is definitely a me-style Sicilian, right? Takes your opponent out of their comfort zone. Let's look at the Explorer. Let's see how many times I've kind of had that position. So we'll go my games as white, and this, and then, so, okay, knight f3 I've played most, and I've won 49%. b4 is the wing gambit, and I've won 58%. That's not bad, right? d4 straight away, I mean, that's playable, you know. 52%. c3 is the, what, the Alapin, is it? Is that the Alapin? Yeah. c3, so I've 48%, so I've not done very well at that. Then there's b3 Sicilian, that's a Snyder variation. I've had some success, 51%. And then knight to c3, overall 52%, so it's not massive, right? And here you can see the most common moves, knight c6 and d6. So whichever order they're played. f4, ooh, wow, okay. I've tended not to do very well, and then knight c6. Okay, so from this situation, okay, so from this position, it's about equal, okay? So knight f3, by far the most common move, and I've got a 56% win rate with that. Oh, sorry, that's my move, okay? So from here I'm doing all right, okay? So, you know, I haven't got heaps and heaps of games in that, but I kind of like it. So, yeah, I get a feeling that it's not seen all that often, the Grand Prix. So I think a lot of Sicilian players won't know how to respond to it, and that's certainly what I seem to find. And you know, everyone makes the same kind of natural-looking moves, but you can get a good attack. So you know, 2 out of 3 with that move, 3 out of 4 with that move. Slightly worse, only 2 out of 5 if Bishop G4 is played, which is the most common. Okay, and I play this, and yeah, 3 wins, 3 losses so far, but I'll keep working on it. So there you go, that's the Sicilian Grand Prix, back from the dead. I'm having a bit of fun with it, and maybe you will too, but that's it. Thought I'd share. Thanks for watching, see you later.